Here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our third segment. And our third segment is going to be about wildcard teams and, just talking about that and how they can improve. So on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, around that time last week, I started talking about teams that made the playoffs and didn't win the World Series and how they can improve, how they can get past that, because it's really interesting. You know, they made the playoffs last year, and what's going on with them this year and how they can improve and all that kind of stuff. And I started off with the teams who made it to the World Series, then who made it to the championship, division, and now we're here at the wild card. So these are four teams who did make the wild card series, of course. They're the four teams who, lost in the wild card series. And it's just talking about, to me, how they can improve, what their plans are for this year, and how they can maybe get over the hump and make it to the championship or World Series. So the first team we're going to be talking about, we're going to start off with the NL, and that is the most interesting team of the bunch, the Miami Marlins. Now, the Marlins came out of nowhere last year. I shouldn't say kind of. They came out of nowhere last year and made the playoffs out of, over all these teams that we thought were locks to the playoffs. And, they didn't win a game, but the fact they made the playoffs kind of got a lot of people excited for their future. At the deadline, they traded for Jake Berger, Josh Bell, guys who had really performed there and were under control and thought could be piece of their core for the future. Of course, they had an amazing pitching staff as well. They have Yuri Perez, Jesus Luzardo. Sandy Alcantara was hurt, but when he's healthy, he's one of the better pitchers in baseball. I mean, he won a Cy Young. So we're kind of looking at it as, okay, the Marlins, finally have a plan. They finally aren't in a rebuild, a perpetual rebuild, and they can't, they know what they're doing. They're competing, and it's interesting to see what moves they make. And instead of building off a great season for their franchise where they made the playoffs out of nowhere, they got rid of their general manager and hired a new guy who then signed no one, and they went into a rebuild. So, the first domino for me was getting rid of Kim Eng. She quit, technically, quote unquote, but it's also because they wanted to hire someone above her. It just made no sense for me to fire her and kind of force her way out. Even if she stayed, she would have been the number 2 person. So, just made no sense. After what she did, she got you guys to the playoffs, built that core, and then you just replace her. And I want to make it clear that I love who they hired. Peter Bendix was a guy who I really wanted the Mets to get a few years ago when they were on their first president of baseball operations search. And he's very smart. He's from the Rays. But still, I don't understand why you got rid of Kim Eng. She did all she was asked. She made the playoffs, and maybe you didn't think there was a long-term future for her, but could have waited another year, see what she had in store for you. So it was just a really interesting, it's just a weird thing for me to get rid of the GM who brought you to the playoffs. I thought it was really weird, but what the Marlins did this offseason was, frankly, put a whole bunch of nothing. They had a key free agent like Jorge Soler, who instead of re-signing, they did not even offer a contract to, which did not go well for them. So sorry about that, little background noise. But it's just I don't understand why they're entering a rebuild. I guess Peter Bendix is a really smart guy who was with the Rays for many years, didn't like what he saw, but still, they still have some young players. Who I think they could build around, especially in that pitching staff, of course. We know how elite that pitching staff is, especially with young talent for the past few years now. It's just strange what they did this offseason, especially with Soler. So they obviously are entering a rebuild. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year. They could surprise the people because of their pitching. Maybe some of the young hitters they pick up and they have could, really break out. Maybe Tim Anderson will go back to 2019, sure. So I don't think so. And it's kind of, it's an interesting choice to go back to a rebuild if you're Peter Bendix. But look, he's a smart guy. He's from the Rays. I would trust him if I'm a Marlins fan. And he definitely knows more than me. So, Marlins back in a rebuild. Instead of building off the surprise playoff berth, they do this. So, an interesting decision, but let's as baseball fans hopefully that they know what they're doing. Next, we have the other NL team who is kind of in the same boat for the Marlins. You'll see why. That, of course, being the Milwaukee Brewers. They were the 3 seed and lost to this and got swept by the 6 seed and 2 to the Diamondbacks, who then went on to make the World Series, of course. So it was kind of okay. I don't think anyone was stopping the Diamondbacks last year. They were on a heater. I mean, they wanted it bad and they made it. So good for them. Other than that, so like the Marlins, the Brewers have had a very interesting offseason. Instead of trying to compete, instead of trying to build off what you did last year, they rebuilt. They signed Rhys Hoskins, who I thought was kind of showing the fact that, okay, it's our time now. We're going to win the Central. We think this division is winnable. And then 2 weeks later, they trade Corbin Burns. So I don't know what the hell they're doing. I don't know what their plan is. I don't think they're trying to be competitive. They re-signed Brandon Woodruff, which is good. But, again, he's out for probably the entire season. I would be surprised if it isn't. He does have a bad injury, so he could be back in September or October, but I doubt it. So that signing really does not affect them for this season. But they signed Rhys Hoskins. They signed Gary Sanchez. They re-signed Wade Miley. They traded Mark Canha as well, who they got last deadline from the Mets. So I don't think they're going to be very good, to put it nicely. I think they know that. They're kind of in purgatory right now, just not too bad to get an insane draft pick, but not good enough to make the playoffs at all. I don't even think they're going to come close to the playoffs right now. I mean, just off the top, teams I think are much better than them. Sorry for moving around a lot if you're watching on audio. Chair's not the most comfortable, but yeah. But I think teams that are just off the top better than the Brewers. You have, of course, the Brewers, the Dodgers. You have, I would say, the Phillies, the Mets. You have, I wouldn't say the Marlins or the Nationals. I would say the Cubs. I would say the Reds. I would say the Diamondbacks, the Giants, the Padres. So you could argue the Brewers are a bottom 5 team in the NL right now. Their ace right now is Freddie Peralta, and who's a fine pitcher. He's just not really an ace caliber guy, if you know what I mean. And after that, they have Wade Miley, who is fine, but he's probably going to miss opening day. And I don't even though he is, I don't think he can be your number 2 starter if you're trying to win, which again, I don't think they are. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense that they're not going to be that competitive. I think they will be next year, honestly. They have a lot of good young bats, guys, of course, like Jackson Chourio, Sal Frelick, William Contreras, guys to build off like that. It's just I don't think a lot of them are ready yet. I don't think they'll be that great this season. So, I don't think they're going to be a big impact this year and kind of will them into the playoffs. I think they have a good future, the Brewers. I think not enough people are giving them credit. But I think that they still need another year to develop the entire talent. I think you could look at potential trades of Willy Adames and Devin Williams at the deadline, which I think are pretty likely to also rebuild that system. You could definitely get a top prospect for Devin Williams. Probably get a middle of the road guy for Willy Adames, depending on how he performs, though. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about for the Brewers here. Just made the playoffs, got a lot worse, and I don't think they're making the playoffs. I agree with their decision they made, though. Frankly, I didn't think they were gonna. I don't think they should have been competitive. It's just the Rhys Hoskins signing is really weird for me. If you're not going to be competitive, I guess they want to nurse him back to health, and then hope he performs well, and then get a good prospect for him at the deadline. So that's, I guess, really where what it comes down to. That's what they're hoping. So that's what I think of the Brewers. I don't think they're going to get much better than last year. I don't think they improved much. So that's really it. Next, we're going to move to the AL, and we have a very interesting team, and that is the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, the Blue Jays have had a super fun offseason. Probably not if you're a Blue Jays fan, but at the start, we thought they were going to get Shohei Ohtani. Before that, we thought they were going to get Juan Soto. We heard that they were in talks for Juan Soto. They really wanted a big lefty power bat, and Soto was their guy. And the Yankees were involved, but they wanted to make sure that he can go there, and they didn't. He landed with their division rival. And then we heard, okay, Ohtani signing with the Blue Jays, 100% happening. Some guy on the LA Times or something said that. We thought he was on a plane to Toronto, of course. We knew about that. He had visited their spring training facility. It made a lot of sense. He could get his market to 3 countries now: Japan, USA, and Canada. And instead, he goes to the Dodgers like we all expected from the start. So it's kind of just a waste of everything. So the Blue Jays haven't had a bad offseason. It's just comparing it to what we thought they would get, it is kind of underwhelming. We thought they would get Soto and Ohtani. Instead, they got Kevin Kiermaier, Yariel Rodriguez, and Justin Turner. Now, I do think they definitely improved. Yariel Rodriguez is definitely a big important factor for them. He's a guy who can be a swingman, start some games, come out of the bullpen some games. They kind of have to determine his role as the season goes on. But it was a really interesting signing for the Blue Jays, a guy coming over from defecting from Cuba who also played in the MPB, and getting that kind of contract. So, he has good pure stuff. Might need to add a pitch or two, but I think still will be a good player. They just have to determine his role first, if he's going to be a back-end starting pitcher, a swing guy who's a long reliever type thing, or just focusing purely on being a back-end reliever. There's a lot of potential in that arm. There's a lot of potential in what he can do, and I'm excited to see what the Blue Jays have in store for him. They're a smart organization. They know what they're doing. Justin Turner, again, adds a DH, a great DH to that lineup. Of course, they had Brandon Belt there, who was fine, but I definitely think Turner's an upgrade, even if he's a righty and they wanted a lefty. Still think he's a really good player. He also has more versatility than Belt. Belt could only really play DH and first base. Turner can play first. He can play third if you need him. He can even play an outfield spot if you really need him to. I doubt it, but still. So, I think Turner provides more flexibility, especially in the lineup if you want to platoon him. So that was good. Kevin Kiermaier, nice re-signing to get him in center field. Always reliable to glove, always valuable to a team. It's underwhelming for their offseason because of what we thought they were going to get, but it's still not bad. I think we definitely have to realize that it's not a bad offseason. So you definitely have to look at it that way and make sure you don't you realize that. But I think they're going to be in the running for the 6th wildcard spot. I think right now the locks are the Orioles, Yankees, and Astros. And then AL Central, probably the Twins. Those are 4 spots. And then after that, you have a lot of good teams who are going to be fighting it out. You have the Blue Jays, the Rays, you have the Mariners, the Rangers, you have the Royals, the Tigers. So a lot of teams fighting it out, but I think the Blue Jays have a good chance at making a 5 or 6 seed. And we'll see how the season goes. We'll see if their pitching depth can keep up as well. And finally, we have the Rays, who also lost in the Wild Card Series to the guys who eventually won the whole thing, and the Rangers. So, it looks not as bad as before because they lost the team that ended up winning it all. But still, losing in 2 is just not good. And they got a lot worse this offseason. I mean, the signings first: Phil Maton, Ahmed Rosario, definitely good signings. Traded. I love the Tyler Glasnow trade for them. He wasn't worth the money they were paying him for just the small market team that they are. I think getting Ryan Pepio is a great move. Johnny DeLuca can help a lot. But the big elephant in the room with the Rays is they're losing their star shortstop probably forever. I've talked about it a few times. I don't want to go deep into it because, the stuff Wander Franco has allegedly done is not pretty. I'm sure we all know about it if you're a baseball fan. If you do not know about it, go look it up. I don't know how you're a baseball fan, you haven't heard of it. But if you're a general sports fan, do look up what Wander Franco did. It's allegedly what he allegedly did, and what's going on there. So losing your star shortstop, it hurts a lot. They have guys who can fill in, like Taylor Walls, like Ahmed Rosario. You could even move Camarino there if you want to. You have Camarino for a full season as well. That definitely helps you with your season, but that's the big problem. You also are losing a lot of pitching. And Shane McClanahan, Zach Eflin is going to be one of the guys. You haven't missed him. Jeffrey Springs, you're missing. Drew Rasmussen. So, of course, you traded Glasnow. So, I think the Rays definitely didn't. I think the Rays definitely got worse. Not to a fault of their own, really, just injuries and unfortunate situations off the field. So I don't have them making the playoffs currently, but they're the Rays. They can pull some magic out of their behind. They still have really good players like Zach Eflin, like Randy Rosarena, Isaac Paredes, Junior Camarino, Brandon Lowe. If anyone could do it, it's the Rays. I do find it interesting that 3 out of the 4 teams I mentioned here kind of got significantly worse. I think that's really interesting. Maybe creates a talking point, but I'm not sure. But yeah, that's my summary of the wildcard teams for the for last year's playoffs and what happened with them. That is the end of our third segment. After, we'll be going to our fourth and final segment, which is going to be about news around the league, what's going on in the league, what's going on with that, and just some general news stories I want to talk about. So yeah, we'll be talking about that. But first, we're going to go to a break, and we'll see you after that. So thanks.